Thank you, Jay.
I have a couple more questions here. Peter asks whether CCLT is supporting the WCB effort to make tribes eligible for WCB grants. Any response on that?
We have not weighed in on that particular bill yet. We had heard that there could be problems with it because of the author, quite frankly. And so we've just been holding off and monitoring that. Of course, we support that effort to make that happen. It's just politically, we're not sure if that's going to be something that we need, can put a lot of effort into at this point based on who the author of the legislation is.
Another question or comment from Darla about AB 721 and the concern that access easements or other easements that are in support of conservation be included in that, in AB 721. So I don't know if there's any thoughts on that or response.
I would call on Harry for this because I think, Harry, you're the one that's working on the language the most closely.
I thank you, Darla, for mentioning that, and we'll reread it with that in mind. We're working closely with Mark and Tamara Galanter at Shoot Mohali, as well as a couple other members of Shoot's team. So thank you.
I just wanted to jump in. This is Bridget. I'm sorry, I'm incognito here without a video, but Bridget Fithian, Sierra Foothill Conservancy, and Tasha, I think there's two other issues that we're working on. One is related to extending the sunset for the property tax exemption for the land trusts, and just hoping you could speak a little bit to what the timeline is looking like on that piece. It's so important to all of our organizations, and we want to make sure everybody is able to continue to have that benefit for the lands that they hold in fee title. And then the other item is related to mitigation, but Tasha, maybe I'll let you jump in there for that extension. Sure,
just a quick note. Yeah, we want to make sure that we get that extension in place. It doesn't, I don't think it sunsets until 2022 or maybe even the beginning of 2023. So our strategy is to start talking about it now and making people aware of the fact that it will sunset, and then actually starting to work on legislation to extend that sunset. Either January of next year is probably the likely time frame for that, but we do have a little bit of time to tee that up and get it in place before it expires.
Great, thank you. And then we have a couple of mitigation issues that are going to be a little bit more of a long game for us in determining the strategy for how to approach them. And we've been contacting several of the land trusts who have expressed concerns about some of the issues, 1094 being one that has caused a lot of heartache for the land trust community over the last 8 years or so, and working on some cleanup and kind of next steps in regards to how that's being implemented. So I myself have been in touch with several of you, asking if you'd be interested in participating in some of that work, and several of you have responded, yes, indeed. So we'll be working on getting together with PPG and several land trusts working in the mitigation arena on those issues. If you are interested in participating in some of that work, you can contact me directly, or you can pop it into the chat, just your name and organization, and or send it to me directly with contact, and I'll get you on the list. Again, this is Bridget speaking from the East. Bridget Fithian.
Thanks, Bridget. Okay, so I think that that concludes things for me if we want to move on to the next item.
Go ahead, Kim.
Oh, I just was going to say thank you again so very much, Tasha, for all the work that you and Mark are doing on behalf of CCLT.
Of course, we're very happy to be doing it.
So we're going to change or switch topics here a little bit and go into 30 by 30. For those of you who have had an opportunity to work with Will Murray in the past, I just want to share that we've been working with him on a small partnership that we are looking to launch, and with both LTA and CCLT, and trying to figure out how to coordinate around 30 by 30. And we've been working with Will, and he's just been really fantastic to work with. So I'm going to pass it over to Will, and then he's going to take us from there.
I think I'm getting ready to key up Kim Delfino, who is actually the star of the show. But it's a couple things. Nice to see everybody. There's lots of folks here I haven't seen for a long time, and it is like Jeanette said earlier. It's nice to see some familiar faces and some strange faces. Mark Silverstein. So here we are. The Land Trust Alliance and CCLT are looking to put together a partnership to really go into the 30 by 30 business in a big way. We kind of haven't seen the stars aligned like this for maybe ever. You know, a lot of us have been in this 30, 40 years, and we haven't seen this come together like this, where the governor's executive order, the legislative package going forward, the budget share, and then all the things that are happening with climate, fire, floods, that kind of thing, increasing aridification, the drought this year, everything coming together. And with 30 by 30, if the state of California needs to, save substantial more habitat, and Kim Delfino is going to talk with you about this, the private lands are going to be disproportionately important. That means the land trust community is going to be disproportionately important to this thing. There is a chance the state, in their wisdom, could get it wrong. There is a chance that the land trust community could get left out of all this and not be in a position to actually really help with this and move things along in a substantial way. So that's what the Alliance and CCLT working through Kim want to do, is position the land trust community within this 30 by 30 effort to make sure that things are going to go and have a substantial impact that will really last on the ground when all these dollars get spent. So in order to not get left out of this and make sure that the right things happen, we've got this kind of great team teed up to make things happen and provide to the land trust individually and collectively the firepower that you're looking for to actually take advantage of this. So I want to flip it to Kim to take it away on this and explain how this is all going to work, and thank Kim for her work on this. It's great to have people on the A team on the inside. So Kim, take it away.
Thank you, Will. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully I will do this correctly so I can show you my PowerPoint, and I will have to switch it to, let's see, start from the beginning. Can you guys see this? Okay, great, excellent. Well, let me just introduce myself really quickly, because I do recognize a number of faces, although now I only see 4 of us, but when we had the big Hollywood squares in there. I'm Kim Delfino, and I probably worked with many of you in my past job as the California Director for Defenders of Wildlife, which I did for 19 years. And now I am on my own, formed Earth Advocacy, and I'm consulting, and I'm really thrilled to be working with CCLT and LTA on the 30 by 30 effort. I want to give you just a brief presentation about how CCLT is working to represent the land trust interests as the state develops its strategies to conserve 30% of our lands and waters by 2030, and to put together what they are prioritizing as their climate-based solutions. And I'll just start off by saying, what do I mean when I say climate-based solutions? It's a term of art that the state's been using. And what it is conservation, restoration, and improved land management actions that increase carbon storage or avoid more greenhouse gas emissions, and or provide for improved resilience for the impacts of climate change. And they include community greening projects, wetlands restoration, hedgerows in agriculture, managed grazing, protecting and managing for healthy forests and watersheds. I think these are things that all of you are very familiar with, I suspect. So this is why it's so relevant to the work you do. So this all started, if you didn't already know this, with Executive Order N-8220, where the governor announced, in fact, was the first state to announce that California was going to try to meet a goal of protecting 30% of our lands and waters by 2030, in a way that produces, and they have 5 buckets they're really looking at, protecting biodiversity, expanding equitable access for outdoor lands and recreation, promoting nature-based solutions to address climate change, and maintaining economic prosperity and food security. And this executive order is going to guide how the Newsom administration makes its decisions for the duration of the administration. It's also important because the Biden administration has adopted this as well as their goals. So the federal government is working in collaboration with the state. And in fact, even to the point where they have a Department of Fish and Wildlife staff person now working over in the Council for Environmental Quality. So there's a lot of back and forth between the federal government and the state on how 30 by 30 is going to be executed. I would just also give you a little background. 30 by 30 came out of a push by scientists who were looking at the impacts of climate change and what's happening with the extinction crisis. And they basically said, look, if we're going to have any hope of surviving as a world, we need to protect 30% of our global lands and waters and oceans by 2030 as part of an interim goal to ultimately achieve protecting half of our lands and waters by 2050. So this is part of a longer term effort here. So what does this executive order mean for the land trusts? To meet this goal, just on the back of the envelope, sort of figuring out like what have we already conserved in California and what will we need to conserve to meet a goal of 30% protection. Generally, it looks to be about we would need to conserve another 8 million acres of land by 2030, which is about 1 million acres of land a year, if you're going to average it out. This is a big, audacious goal. When you think about it, I mean, this is significant. And when you think about how we're going to do this, land trusts are going to be an integral part of this. There is no way the state of California is going to be able to meet this goal without working with the land trust community, because land trusts are the ones, as you know, because you are the land trust community, you're on the front lines in the communities. You're working on the ground. You're working with community-based organizations. You're working with ranchers and farmers, and the land trusts have a really powerful role to play in this. As part of the work by the state, they're going to put together 2 reports that are going to be guiding how the state proceeds. The first that will come out is called the Climate Smart Land Strategy. This will lay out, how are they going to be achieving carbon neutrality and climate resiliency. And this report will come out in October of this year. So they're moving very quickly. And it'll actually also inform the CARB scoping plan. So it's very important. And again, this isn't just about, this is also about land management, which is something that the land trusts also do. So the land trusts have a real role here, I think, in making sure that their priorities show up in what the state puts together. The other report is called the Pathways to 30 by 30, and this report will come out in February of 2022. So again, these are sort of going to be their plans on how they're going to move forward with achieving these goals. And again, the land trusts have to engage, I think, to make sure that they are showing up, their priorities are showing up, and that the state is really, building something that is durable and sustainable and building capacity. So CCLT right now is working to make sure that the land trust community voice is heard. We're starting to arrange meetings with state leadership where we're going to be introducing, I mean, a lot of them know what land trusts are doing, but I think they know it on a very general level, and we want to give them examples. We want to tell them stories. We want to, make them understand the significance and the breadth and the depth of what the land trust community has to bring to the table. We'll also be sharing information to membership. I think you guys got an email announcing this get together with information about the regional workshops, and we're going to be providing talking points and toolkits and information that will be helpful to you to engage efficiently and effectively in this process. We're going to be collecting stories to illustrate the values of land trusts, because I've learned this from listening to Will talk. The value of stories is very important. This is how people like to communicate. Telling stories illustrates important points. And then we're going to be looking for opportunities for the land trust to engage at the state level through the legislature, where the funding opportunities are going to lie. This is all connected, I think, as Will already sort of pointed out with the introduction. So, this is kind of where I give a pitch, because, the state is going to be collecting information. They're going to be producing these reports, and they're going to be implementing these strategies. And, it's critical that we make sure that information is provided to the state, and that they incorporate, again, what are land trust priorities, how can land trusts help, and how can the state help land trusts as well to help carry out this mission. So we need you to sort of help us. This is kind of my pitch. There's going to be virtual regional workshops that have already started. So last week we had 2 workshops. Tomorrow we'll have 3 workshops starting tomorrow. On here is the meeting dates. If you want any information, just go to californianature.ca.gov, and that is the link that will provide you information. You can also sign up and register for the regional workshops. They also provided an input questionnaire that they're asking folks to fill out and submit by May 14th. And then there'll be topical workshops that will be held in the summer and into the fall, where I think they will have topics I think the land trust really can engage upon in terms of, what does equity mean? Climate change, biodiversity, working lands, how do you define conservation? These are all important questions that need to be answered, and that the land trust have a very, particular point of view that should be heard and understood. And so I think, like I said, we're collecting stories. So we're going to be, so if you can have stories that you think are really compelling and would be useful to communicate to state leadership, please provide them to us. We will be sending out a questionnaire, a brief questionnaire that we'll try to design in a way that will take a minimal amount of your time, because we know that you're all very, very busy. So we will do follow-up if that helps you, so that maybe you don't have to write it all down, and maybe I'll just spend time writing it down for you. We want to make this as easy as possible, but we want to make this effective and powerful engagement. And in order to be able to do that, we need to harness, the power and the capacity of the land trusts. So that was my very quick pitch on what's going on with 30 by 30. Again, I would just simply say, this is a huge opportunity. I know a lot of folks are kind of like, well, it's like a nice press release that the governor done. Really, what's this going to do? But I suspect between the Biden administration and with the Newsom administration, with the money that's going to be coming out through the budget and then the bond proposals, there's a real opportunity here for land trusts to be able to carry out their missions, things that they're already doing now, but they just don't have the capacity or the funding maybe to do more. I think there's opportunities where we can have policy changes made that can facilitate and help the land trust. And like I said, investments in technical capacity and other ways of supporting the land trust community in California. So I think there's, I'm always willing to jump on a good opportunity. I think there is one here, and the land trusts, again, like I said, 8 million acres by 2030 is not an insubstantial goal to meet. And it's not going to happen by only protecting roadless areas or BLM land. This is going to require a significant lift in terms of private land as well. So I guess I could I can hand it over to Will or open up to questions. I can't see the
Yeah, Kim,
chat.
if you would entertain questions, and Mark will help you with this.
Yeah, we do have a question.
Sure, I'll stop screen sharing. There we go.
One of the questions from Rachel is whether anyone has attended the first workshops and any report back on how it went, how it was run, any advice in terms of our participation. Good question.
So I've attended both workshops. I'm going to actually attend all 9. The first,
We'll start.
I think the first was, they were good. They were very high level. I think it was a good, it was a good teaching moment in terms of how to better be able to engage. You know, they have a survey. They're doing this through an online survey. So when you're on the regional workshop, you can type in your answers. What I've suggested is that I think we have a toolkit that we're going to send out that will list the questions. There's about 10 questions where if you could look at them beforehand, and if you have specific regional or local priorities, I would write those down and be ready to type them in as the information is coming in. I also would say that these regional workshops are not the one and only way to engage with the state. They will have a portal open to take written comment. We are arranging meetings with the leadership and the folks who will be writing this report. So I think we have many touches and opportunities to get information in. But the workshops are interesting because you do get to see sort of like they scroll through people's input, and it's a pretty diverse set of folks who are participating. I suspect that every workshop will just be a little bit better as they sort of refine the questions they're asking and how they're engaging people. Frankly, I think it's really hard to do these types of like workshops where it's, you know, you're not seeing people, you're not having an iterative discussion with them. It's sort of kind of one-sided. But I think the state's trying to do its best given sort of the COVID circumstances that we're operating within. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. A couple of more comments. One, Bridget points out that if you want to send stories, compelling stories of the work that you and your organizations are doing now that would help bolster this effort, you can mail them to callandtrust.org and with attention to Kim Delfino, and we'll get it to you, Kim, through CCLT. Another question is, will your PowerPoint be available? Can we post that for the membership?
Sure.
So we can
Yeah.
figure out a way to do that if you can send that to one of us.
And then on those stories, I would just give, things like, we've engaged in this partnership with the local tribe, and this is the work that we're carrying out here on the ground. Or we're working with a local school group to bring kids on to our preserve, and this is how we're doing that kind of engagement and access to nature. We are working, we have protected X amount of land and it's providing these types of biodiversity benefits. There's so much amazing work that's done. And we always talk about it on a really high level, like, oh, the land trusts have protected X amount of acres, and oh, the land trusts are working with communities. But the more we can give specifics and really tell a story about it and like put meat on the bones, I think the more compelling it is and the more real it is to the folks that we are talking to about why the land trusts are so important to this effort.
Thank you.
Kim, this is Walter Moore at Post. Not to get into too much sausage making, but could you just talk for a moment about some of the challenges related to the measurements that they're trying to develop and use to figure out how and what work counts towards meeting these goals? You used a raw acreage, but it will go beyond that, right?
Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of work ahead of them, quite honestly. I think this goes to the question of like, what is conservation? How are you defining conservation? And so I came up with this I'm not the only one. Folks have come up with this 8 million acre because we're basically just looking at GAP 1 and 2 lands And that we total up what that acreage is versus the total acreage of California. And when you back it all out, it basically is like 22 million acres, and 30 million acres is 30% of California. So we basically need 8 million acres of land. That's kind of how you're looking at it. So, but the management component of it is also critical. So it's not just have you put an easement on the land, or is it been acquired, but it's also how is that land being managed? How are there lands that need to be restored? That's also a critical issue. And this is where the climate smart land strategy and the 30 by 30 kind of intersect in like a Venn diagram, in that there'll be stuff that meets a 30 by 30, but there's a lot of work over on the climate smart land strategy that is, it may not be, permanent protection, it might be term limited, but those are, but it provides a real climate benefit. So soil management or other types of agricultural work that's being done, those could also be funded by the state as part of its effort to get to carbon neutrality. And so, and this is why I made the point about the CARB, the California Air Resources Board scoping plan, because they're going forward with their scoping plan, and they're actually going to hopefully really engage on this issue of the role of natural and working lands in carbon neutrality. And the climate smart land strategy can really help inform that, so that we're not left out again. So it's not just like the way we're going to get to it is, reduce fuels and make carbon-free fuel. I mean, that's one piece of it. And so this is where these pieces all connect together. And I think, like I said, there's a real opportunity here.
Sort of following along that lines, Darla wonders about in the 30 by 30, is there any a priori sense of how much is going to be allocated towards acquisition versus management stewardship? Is that up for grabs or discussion, or?
I don't know. I mean, again, this goes to the definition of what is conserved. I suspect that management is going to be a key component regardless, right? Because you might be able to put an easement over something, but if you don't have funding to be able to manage it, if you've got fire, issues where you have to do restoration to have it to be more resilient, they're not mutually exclusive. And then the other complicating factor is going to be what role do the federal lands or lands that are already protected, what additional things do you need to, or in public ownership, I should say, lands that are already in public ownership, like what additional protections might need to be put on those. You could theoretically achieve your 30 by 30 goal by only dealing with federal lands. That's not going to happen. But how that all sorts itself out is going to be the thing that the state is working through between now and February of 2022. And the other piece of it is, and this is where I think it's important for the Land Trust to engage, is because we also want to make sure that they design a plan that is actually implementable and has an implementation component to it. And so the Land Trusts are part of that implementation. One of my greatest worries is you do a plan, it sits on a shelf, and there's nothing there to really take it and really move it forward. And so these are all the things that we're going to have to engage on and push the state on to make sure that we have something that is durable and will carry forward past a Newsom administration. I'm trying to see if there's other questions. Looks like Will answered some. Any other questions?
I was just going to pop in here. This is Bridget, and I'm showing you my video now. This is why I'm incognito, because I have to wear sunglasses right now, but you're getting the full effect. I just wanted to let everyone know that we did send the talking points that were referenced in this meeting 4 days ago. They should be in your inboxes from April 22nd with the reminder for this meeting. And so those are a great starting point, and Kim did a wonderful job of crafting those for us. And oh good, Will put his glasses on too. Okay, great. Thank you. I don't feel so alone. So you can tee off of those talking points, and there's little keys in there for add your personal story, you know, under the talking points. So Kim's done a lot of the work for us to prep that, and it's been vetted by the CCLT policy committee as well. They are like pretty high level, but we really want to get a strong showing of the land trusts at those meetings, so they know that, so the agencies know that, you know, we are a mobilized force in the conservation movement, and that this is critical to all of our organizations, and that, you know, we want to be primary players in this. So just encourage you to dig back in your email for that April 22nd email from CCLT. It's from that, the email address that is in the text box here. So it's the mail at CCLT. And yeah, please participate in those regional meetings and, you know, help us get a strong showing for the land trust community.
We have another question about how many stories per land trust. Okay, bring them all on.
As many, bring them on. We'll take as many as you possibly are willing to spend the time putting down on paper, or telling us to call you up so we can put it down on paper. And then on the regional workshops, I just want to make a really fine point. The more specific you can be in the responses that you're typing into these surveys, if you are participating on the regional workshops, the better it is. Because, for example, I was on the Sac Valley one. They said, well, what do you like about Sac Valley for you know, for access to nature? And it's like, we like trails. Okay, well, that's great, but, you know, if you have like a specific trail that you want to see, you know, expanded, or if there's a specific location that you think they need to be focused on, those are, I think, more helpful responses. I think people didn't realize, you know, when you got on the Sac Valley one, it was the first go around, and I don't think people were prepared, but now we know what they're asking. And so if you can just, you know, think about it a little bit, like, hey, what are like the 3 places that I want them to focus on? What are the 3 partners they need to be dealing with? You know, like, and be prepared to then type that in. I think that would be helpful. And then it's hard to know who's participating from the land trust, because unless you know people's names, you know, they don't have a identifier usually. So it's, but I do know that in the Bay Area one, there was definitely points being made about land trusts. I saw that more than in the Sac Valley. I think because I think now people are wising up as to what they can type in as their answers.
Anyway, we have a couple more comments. Adam pointed out that the Sierra Nevada meeting is at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, and San Joaquin Valley at the same time on Thursday. And
Yep.
Nicole wondered if there will be an opportunity after these workshops to continue providing input, and it sounds like that will be the case.
Yes,
so
there is the questionnaire that the state sent out, and you can find it on the webpage I mentioned, which is www.californianature.ca.gov. But then also, I believe that there's going to be efforts to probably come up with individual regional letters, or even a land trust letter. So we have, I think, number of opportunities to provide information as this moves forward. The workshops are the first sort of, you know, entree.
Yeah, great. And Rachel points out the Central Coast is tomorrow. So I think hopefully everybody got the notice that went out with the announcement for this meeting. But check that again. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. If there are any other questions, last minute questions to Kim, we'll move on to our next topic. Any other questions for Kim? All right. Seeing none, then we will move on. So the next topic we're going to be discussing is a budding partnership that we're working on between CCLT and LTA. And I'm going to pass it over to Wendy Millett, who I believe her video is off as she's out at the ranch, and have her open it up. And then Wendy Ninteman will also be joining in at some point from LTA. So pass it over to you, Wendy. Wendy.
Yep, thanks. And hello, everybody. Sorry, I don't have a video, but you guys know how it works in rural areas. So yeah, the opportunity that we've been working on for a bunch of months now is to collaborate more with the Land Trust Alliance, both on 30 by 30, but also on delivering programs to California land trusts. And this isn't new. I mean, we all have been working with LTA for many years on many things, but creating a more formalized partnership and leveraging the best skills and superpowers of each organization is something that feels especially timely given the 30 by 30 effort. And so there's a small work group of us who've been talking about this, working with the Land Trust Alliance. I think Wendy is on the phone and going to follow up next. And we're really excited about what's possible here to figure out how to create some different kind of programming, reaching out to broaden the communication messaging around the role of land trusts in our state to deliver on essential ecosystem services and all of the natural benefits of protected and working lands. So that's the high level overview. And I think at that point, I'll turn it over to Wendy N.
Great. Hi, everybody. It's really nice to see so many familiar faces. It makes me feel like I've been doing this work forever, and I guess maybe I have. I've been working with CCLT in one way or another for the past 13 years, and that's when I came on board at the Land Trust Alliance to rebuild the Western program. So over those years, I've been to many of your state conferences. I've had the pleasure of meeting many of you through our Land Trust Executive Director Leadership Training Program or special retreats or trainings. And also I grew up in California, so I do know just a little bit about why the landscape is so special. But one thing that I have not been able to do in this job over the past 13 years is to figure out how better to serve the Alliance's nearly 100 member land trusts. That is almost half of the land trusts in the entire Western Division. We have, as you know, our California Southwest Program Manager for the last decade has been based in Colorado. And Amanda Hill, who's on the phone right now, is in Denver. And we know that we haven't been able to give you the attention that you need and you deserve, although we do try, because like CCLT, we have had our own capacity issues. So in addition to California, for example, Amanda covers 9 other Western states, and we just haven't been able to secure the funding to get boots on the ground in California. If I had to answer the question, why not? I would have to say that the timing just always felt a little bit off. But now we've got CCLT reimagining its future. We've got Alliance leadership prioritizing service delivery in California. And then we've got Governor Newsom committing to 30 by 30. So I do feel like this is just a fantastic opportunity for us to formalize the partnership so that we can work together to build the strong land trust community that can deliver those land-based solutions that Wendy just talked about. The governor's call to action really does put the work that you all do front and center. And just as Kim just said, this kind of opportunity just doesn't come along every other day. At least it hasn't come along in 13 years that I've been here. So for our part, what we want to do is what we do best, and that is to build a comprehensive training and re-grant program that would be uniquely tailored to the needs of the California Land Trust community. We would build on success that we've had in Oregon and in New York, where we've invested millions of dollars in land trusts over the last decades. But we need to be even more forward thinking, and we need to be California specific. I just can't emphasize that enough. Land acquisition, stewardship and management, climate, new and different types of partnerships, and community-centered conservation that puts equity in the forefront. That is what the land trusts of today need to be thinking about. And we need strong land trusts to get all of that done. So if we're going to do it, we want to do it right, and we want to do it hand in hand with CCLT. We really do need each other. Walter Moore keeps reminding us we're stronger together, and we really are. But unfortunately, this is just an aspiration, because the fine print is that we don't yet have the funding to launch what would truly be an unprecedented effort. So the bottom line, that small team that Wendy just mentioned, which it's Amanda and I representing the Alliance, Jeanette Tuatelli-Lewis, Wendy, Walter, Bridget, and Kim Delfino, with support from Will Murray, are working really hard to get this initiative off and running. And we're currently talking to some of our movement's staunchest supporters in California. We're looking for early investors, but we're looking to them for a lot more than money. We really need their wisdom and their guidance if we're going to get it right. And we really need yours as well. So I think I'll leave it there, but we really do look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Great, thank you, Wendy's. We'll open it up to see if there are any questions for either of the Wendy's right now. Nope. All right, not seeing any questions. At this time, I think we will move on and just open up for a broader discussion on emerging issues or topics that folks want to bring up to CCLT, just to make sure that they're on our radar right now. I'll just open it up to see if if there's anything coming from the membership right now, things that we need to be paying attention to. It's awfully quiet out there. Come on now. I know we all got a lot going on.
Like I said, I think I know a lot of you, and this is highly unusual.
This is Jeff with Placer Land Trust, and just a thought back on the welfare tax exemption item. In addition to trying to get that made permanent instead of sunsetting, I wonder if we could talk to folks in Sacramento about standardizing that a little bit more. It's interpreted pretty haphazardly by different counties across the state. Some counties don't give you an exemption unless you let the public onto that land, and some recognize other forms of public benefit. So I think that would be good, because it worries me that my county assessor, who is one person, could really choose to interpret that in a different way. So I would suggest that we put that on the list as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jeff. We will add that to the strategy. Thank you.
Hi, this is Shelton from Feather River.
Hi, Shelton.
And I also wanted to bring up an issue concerning the Williamson Act and conservation easements. And we've been struggling with Sierra County, where they've been proposing ordinances to terminate Williamson Act contracts upon the application of a conservation easement to that property. And there's been a lot of misinformation on the subject, some concern by many landowners. So I think that's another troubling situation. Lassen County led the way on this a number of years ago, and I think our current state senator is from Lassen County and was involved with that. So just something we need to track.
Shelton, is that being used like to discourage people from completing conservation easements?
That is correct. Yeah, Paul Rowan, who's on the board of SNC, has been the primary board member in Sierra County who's been really making this an issue. And we've had a number of meetings with him and his staff over the last 2 years. We've also had the Department of Conservation participating, trying to get specific information from the county on what they're objecting to in our easements and why they feel they're potentially violating the Williamson Act. And we've not been able to make any headway with that, but it has scared quite a few landowners away from working with us. And these are NRCS funded, ag easements. So they're very much promoting agriculture, our agricultural activities and continued working lands. But anyway, it's a very troubling situation. And I know that that Paul and Sierra County are now promoting it with other rural counties as an issue.
And you said that already exists in Lassen County?
That's correct. I don't have a whole lot of details on that, but that's the county that Paul keeps referring to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll take that back to policy committee, Kim. Does that sound good, Kim Colton? And maybe we can have Shelton share more with us at a later time.
Absolutely.
Sure. Ellen, Fred, and Misty Schmidt have been tracking this on our behalf too, so they can give you all the gory details.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Any emerging issues, topics?
Jeanette, I had a question just for Wendy Ninteman about the emerging partnership with LTA and CCLT. One of the areas where I feel like the biggest gap is tracking what's happening at the federal level in a way that shows up in California. And I'm thinking specifically of two things that relate especially to 30 by 30. One is FEMA has just, some of you know, switched its funding policy away from gray infrastructure for flooding to more towards natural infrastructure solutions. And, hastening that forward and getting, dollars on the ground for sea level rise, that could be a big influence for a number of us here in California. And the other one is, again, speaking to FEMA, is sort of a kind of maybe a change in their mindset around, and having a similar approach to rehousing and funding, not rebuilding in the WUI in the way that they do around flood zones. And so, those are two areas, again, that I'm feeling that I don't have enough visibility on that could have significant impacts. And I'm just hoping that with the LTA, CCLT partnership, that federal advocacy could be strengthened and amplified.
Yeah, thank you, Eamon. It's definitely a big part of this. We've talked a lot about the kind of disconnect and that, how can we bring really the power of the national to bear for the good of California? And I know Amanda's been in some conversations with FEMA. Our little working group has, we've already talked with our government relations office. I've had briefings with our government relations office. They're really, really keen to have the kind of conversations that you're talking about. But frankly, we need the California partnership that can really ground truth the conversation that in a way that we can't. So Amanda, is there anything, not to put you on the spot, do you want to add anything to that?
Sorry, I'm just I'm here. I'm just trying to come off mute. There. Hi everyone. I'm Amanda Hill with the Land Trust Alliance. It's nice to see many of you. We do have a just in addition to Wendy's comments, we do have a new person on our GR team, our government relations team, who's working specifically on climate issues. And while I feel like she's been, she spent, I don't know when we hired her, it was maybe almost a year ago. But I think she's still kind of getting the lay of the land, and she'll be a really good contact moving forward. But just like Wendy said, this partnership and having real staff on the ground in California will be a great step to getting her plugged in, so she knows what's happening in California and what information is most helpful and needed from the federal level. So I think it's been a capacity issue, and hopefully we can contribute to making that better moving forward.
Well, Eamon, if I can add too, this is Wendy at Tomcat. From all the folks I've spoken to in DC, it's pretty clear they think California is a few months ahead of where they are, which is not surprising because they've got a much bigger ship to turn. And so I highlight that too, because I think it just keeps the pressure on for us that we want to outperform and, shine the light so that the federal agencies and the people who are working on this and then at the national level can look to California and our leadership to inform what's going on nationally. So I think the sooner we get organized and the better we collaborate with both LTA, but many other organizations working at this in DC, the better all of us will do, because these are the voices on the ground. The land trust and all of our communities and all of the different ecosystems that we have, knowledge about, from working to protected lands to coast to mountains and all the rest. So they need us.
Thanks for the question. And it's related to a question in the chat from Kyla. Hi, Kyla. About the partnership and more information on how it might be structured, for instance, staffing. And so, as I mentioned, we are hitting the ground this spring and summer to try and raise the funding we need. We want to have 3 years of funding in hand. And if we are able to do that, best case scenario is we would both have someone on the ground in California, CCLT Land Trust Alliance. And that would happen as soon as next year, early next year. Again, if we're able to raise the money. The question about would both orgs partner on conferences and other training activities is really just to be determined. We would have to go into robust program planning to make sure, as I said, that what we're building is for California. And just to sort of emphasize what Wendy said, the Alliance really does see this as an opportunity for California to be sort of a test kitchen for the Land Trust Alliance, which frankly, we have, like in New York has been that, Oregon has been that for us. And it's because we have a great partnership at the state level and the national level, and we have funding to make it happen. So I guess the other thing I would add is, because we have both had staff before, the way I think this is different is we're actually talking about one budget. We're talking about staffing 2 people working hand in hand, working with Kim and working with the policy team towards a shared goal. It's not Land Trust Alliance over here on capacity, CCLT over here. It's much more truly a joint effort that we envision.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're coming towards the end of our allotted time here, and so I'll just see if there are any last-minute questions at all from folks. Right? Not seeing anything. Just a couple of reminders of some follow-ups some asks that were made for the membership that came from our different speakers. And just heads up as well that if you are interested in mitigation issues, to contact Bridget Fithian at Sierra Foothill Conservancy. We also are hoping that our members are going to be participating in the 30 by 30 public meetings, and information and talking points should be in your inbox. We want you to send us compelling stories so that we can promote the depth and breadth of the work of land trusts across California. And also we want you to look out for additional asks that are coming from our board via calls or emails or the newsletter in engaging in specific efforts. And I realize I did not list all of the board members on the board. So in case you're curious, I'll just let you know now. So feel free to reach out to any of us. We are all here, in service for the state. And our board includes Bridget Fithian, who's our vice chair of Sierra Foothill Conservancy, Kyla from Land Trust of San Luis Obispo County, Kay Ogden of Eastern Sierra Land Trust, David Brenner of Rivers and Lands Conservancy, Walter Moore of Post, Wendy Millett of Tomcat Ranch, Linus Ukul of John Muir Land Trust, Kim Colpin from Bolsa Chica Land Trust, Harry Pollack from Save the Redwoods League, and Mark Silberstein from Elkhorn Slough, and myself. So we are all here for you, and please send us things that you feel like you need us to be paying attention to. And thanks again so much for participating in this call. Really appreciate you all. So more from us soon. We'll have our next meeting notice we'll be sending out. So thanks, everyone. If the